All right. Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. We are your weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. My name is Robert Winfrey, and I am your host. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. You know what? I don't know how long or how good this episode's going to be. You know at least the length, because I'm recording, and you've got the full runtime listed down there for you. Not a whole lot to go on. Let's see. We got a review of UFC on ESPN Plus 115, the UFC in Shanghai, China. They're taking next Saturday off, so I don't know what I'll do with my Saturday. But man, my sleep schedule got wrecked by this because I had to go from Friday covering WWE SmackDown, and then I've always been more of a night owl than a day person. So when I saw that the UFC event started at 1 in the morning my time, I just kind of went, you know what? I'll stay up. I'll just stay up. Not going to be a big deal. And you know what? I pushed through, but I got a nice reminder of my aging over the course of that because I did it. I was okay with it. Tired by the end, but them's the breaks. Slept for a little bit. Then I had to go to a birthday party, and something about the disruption there really messed me up. And then, of course, last night, for some reason, couldn't sleep very well. And then today I covered AEW's Forbidden Door. So I've a little bit kind of procrastinated this particular recording. I also was like seeing if something interesting would drop to talk about, but I don't think anything did, so we're just gonna run through what we got and we'll move on from there. So anything you can do to interact with the product is always appreciated. Like, comment, subscribe, star rating, written review, blah 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 blah. You'll know the deal there already. Let's jump on into this, shall we? So UFC on ESPN Plus 115 had a pretty good night prediction wise. 10-2. Let's see, what's the one I swapped? Was that the it was Sumu Darji, I think. I should have I forgot which one it was. It was one of the ones I'd asterisked. It was something about when I saw them. Yeah, it was Sumu Darji and Kevin Borjas. There were some real physical differences there that I didn't double check on paper before I, made my pick because I don't always. And seeing them next to each other, like, yeah, yeah. And then the fact that Borjas, I don't think generally beats people that he's at a height or reach disadvantage to. So swapped on that one. I got the main event wrong. Yes, indeedy. And I got the what's the other one I got wrong? Um, Dawkins over Pereira. So I don't mind getting those wrong. Um, I should have maybe given Walker a little bit more credit, but between the time off and the fact that he's Johnny Walker, like I don't think I was ever gonna get that one right. Any of those I'm particularly proud. Oh, I stuck with Sterling doubly so after the weigh-ins because not only did Ortega make them move the weight up to 153, like really barely even kind of made that. That poor guy. More on him later. So any of those I'm proud of. You know what? Charles Johnson over Lonnie Kavanaugh. Um, that's not a diss on Kavanaugh. I was not uncomplimentary of him. I still think he's definitely got a big upside. He's young, very talented, but when I said this just is one feels like one of those fights where the young talented guy gets a step up that he's not quite ready for, and lo and behold, that's kind of how it played out. The rest, yeah, I'm okay. I forgot I picked Gage Young. So I'm sitting there covering that particular fight. Winner gets announced, like, yeah, all right. Okay, so that's the second one I got wrong. I flop over to my spreadsheet, like, no, you picked Young over there. Like, huh, good for me. Past me was not an idiot. I don't get to say that very often. I don't think much of my past self, but yeah. So 10-2, happy enough with that. Year to date, 262 and 85, 2 draws, 1 no contest. So I'm doing okay. I am doing okay on that one. All right, as for the fights themselves, let's kind of run through this. Main event, Johnny Walker defeats Zhong Ming Yang via TKO, leg kicks, punches, hammer fists, etc. 2:37 of the second. Walker just kind of avoided Zhong for the first round. They both, traded a few leg kicks, but nothing too serious. Zhong, I think, got the first round, but he couldn't get big flurries going, not very good at cage cutting. And then the second round, he's like, okay, let's keep trading calf kicks. That's not always the worst idea in the world, and Johnny Walker's not great about dealing with them, but here's the thing. You don't need great leg kicking defense to be a good leg kicker. And Walker just landed a couple that bothered Zhang, and his leg kind of gave out on him, and then Walker, with this really prolonged flurry, hit him in the back of the head multiple times, but hey, we don't talk about that in MMA, do we? Little bit slow on the stoppage. Could have come, not huge. Other people are like, man, if the shoe had been on the other foot, they would have jumped in immediately to give Zhang the big win. Like, I'm not sold on that. This could have been stopped a little bit earlier. Yes. Egregious. Not really. So, good win for Johnny Walker. He really needed that one. Setback for Zhang, but he's another guy who's still young enough. Yeah, he's only 27. So, if he takes the right lessons from this, this always happens to younger, talented guys. I mean, he was blowing a bunch of people out of the water, which is all fine and dandy. Like, do it if you can, but that does mean you get this giant unknown about how you deal with actual adversity. What happens when fights go long? What happens when you fight someone who either doesn't crumble or is, actually good? I mean, his best win prior to this was what, Anthony Smith? In Smith's retirement fight? Like, no. Again, I probably should have given Walker a little more credit about his ability to win this, even though I don't think I was ever going to pick him, but... So, decent win for Walker, setback for Zhang, but not an unrecoverable one, I think. Co-main event, catch weight of 153 because Brian Ortega couldn't make weight. Aljamain Sterling defeats Brian Ortega 50-45 across the boards. I actually gave Ortega the 5th round. But, moderately competent striking from both guys was the majority of this. Sterling got some top control. But, nothing. This didn't need to be 5 rounds. Sterling kind of got it. I wasn't sure if it was 5 rounds or not when I did my preview last week. Wouldn't have changed my prediction. But Sterling was like, man, why am I going to want to fight 2 extra rounds for the same pay? And you know what? Not an unfair point. I do wonder if there shouldn't be in the UFC pay scale 3 rounds versus 5 rounds as far as tiering your individual contract pay structure might go. But, a thought, I suppose. No one will act on it, but it's definitely a thought. Sterling wants a title fight. Seems unlikely. I'm not going to say impossible, but seems unlikely, especially with, you have Lerone Murphy. Movsar Evloev would still be ahead of Sterling because he beat Sterling. So, unlikely for him to get the next title shot, but, for him to throw it out there, I don't think was the dumbest thing in the world. Don't know that I like his chances against Volk, but, Volk's also at the point when he's reliably going to start slowing, so that's going to fall apart's the wrong phrase, but that's going to start going wrong for him. For Ortega, at a minimum, he's got to fight at lightweight next. Minimum. Because, yeesh. Not great. Don't know what's going on with that, but not great. Heavyweight, Sergey Pavlovich defeated Waldo Cortez Acosta via unanimous decision, 2:29-28 and a 30-27. I have no earthly idea which round you would give to Waldo. Not a clue. This was not a very good fight. It's one of the ones where, they both know Pavlovich knocks people out generally. Well, not since Tom Aspinall, kind of broke him. And, Waldo's not really a finisher in the UFC. Um, so yeah, went the distance, and Waldo just didn't have a whole lot to offer. He fought the same way he normally does. At flyweight, Sumudarji defeated Kevin Borjas for unanimous decision, 30-27 across the boards. Not a good fight. Um, Tayalak Nurajai, defeated Kiefer Crosby via elbows, 3:33 of the first. So controversy here. Crosby not doing well. Winds up on bottom, taking some pretty gnarly elbows. Like he's clearly losing this fight. And then Nurajai knees him in the head on the ground illegally. And there's no dispute about the illegality of the position. It's very illegal. So the ref halts the action, as he should. Gets the doc to check on Crosby. The doctor, and there's a cut on Nurajai under his eye. He's going to get kneed in the head. But the doctor looks at him and goes, okay, I don't have a medical reason you shouldn't continue. Referee goes, great. Out you go, doc. Doc leaves. Referee then goes to Crosby and goes, can you continue? And Crosby says, yes. So the referee goes, okay, hold on. Goes over, takes 2 points away from Nurajai. And then we start the fight. And Nurajai just batters Crosby and knocks him out. Crosby's a little salty about this. He's bitter at the ref. Now, I'm going to ask a question here because I'm genuinely not sure. There were a lot of people going, well, he should have just disqualified Nurajai. Could have. That's a thing that the referee could have done. Here's the thing about that. This is badly worded. There's a flow chart in the rules. Aaron Bronstetter has an image of it up if you want to go look at his Twitter account. The determining factor about whether or not So the way this had gone, if Crosby could not continue, it would have been a disqualification. Crosby said he could continue, so 2-point deduction was the appropriate penalty, for the record. Crosby, again, in his post said, where was my 5 minutes to recover? Of course, after I'm going to say I want to continue. I'm a professional. I'm a fighter. This is what we do. You're supposed to be looking out for my well-being. And I got fouled, and you didn't conform exactly to how I think things should have been done. All right, 1, buddy, you were losing that fight. 2, if you can't continue, don't. Could have got your DQ in there. Didn't. Better at the ref. Now, in fairness to the question, I don't know if one of the things now with how this is handled with certain fouls is actually giving you 5 minutes to recover. They give you that time with groin strikes and eye pokes. I don't know if that extends to all fouls. I'd have to double check. And the reality is, if it doesn't extend to all fouls, then everything the ref did here was right. In a timely manner, he assessed the situation, got the doctor in to make his determination, asked the fighter, because the doctor could have called it off. Doctor didn't. The fighter then has the option to continue fighting or call it off. If the fighter wants to continue, the referee then has to assess if there's a penalty. He did, and we're back to fighting. I genuinely don't know if you get 5 minutes to recover from being kneed in the head. I know you get 5 minutes to recover for a groin strike or an eye poke. But I legitimately am unsure if the 5-minute rule is for all fouls, because not all fouls get treated the same by the rules. That's just how that goes. So I'd have to double check. It might be that he should have been given time to recover. Let me be very clear. As a general rule, I think Mark Goddard is a very good ref. So I would be more lenient towards his adjudication of things. But That is not a guarantee, nor is it a given, because refs do get things wrong. So keep that in mind. But yeah, dude, if you get fouled and you can't continue, say you can't continue. This ridiculous, but I'm a fighter, of course I'm going to try and continue. Then what would the 5 minutes have changed? Oh, but I would have just been concussed. You don't get over a concussion in 5 minutes, my man. If your argument is in 2.5 minutes, I would have decided I couldn't continue. Okay, that's a assessment you need to be a little bit better at making in real time. And I know that's a big ask. I know it's an even bigger ask when you just got kneed in the head illegally. I am not out here pretending that this is easy. But the constant need of fighters to like lash out when things aren't adjudicated in their favor. And I get it, man. They get the short end of every stick. I'm not saying I don't understand it emotionally. I'm saying this is not this is not the hill you should be dying on unless it's a genuine oversight about getting recovery time. Even if you take 5 minutes, though, if you say I want to continue, you're still losing that fight. Nothing was going your way. Nothing. If your argument is, well, then I could have asked the ref if I get the DQ, and the ref's not supposed to tell you that. Like, he wouldn't have told you that. Would have just been, can you continue, yes or no? If yes, I pursue one course of action in terms of assessing penalty, and then we fight. If no, I assess and then decide whether or not it's a DQ or a no contest. Either way, your only contribution to all of this is can you fight? So, yeah, only notable thing there. On the prelims, Gage Young defeated Mahashate via unanimous decision, 30-27 and 229-28. Forgettable fight, but okay. Mahashate really does struggle down the stretch. Flyweight Charles Johnson knocks out Lonnie Kavanaugh. Come from behind, 435 with a second. Round one, really good stuff from Lonnie Kavanaugh. In and out, good kicking game, sharp striking. Getting hit a little, but not too much. Second round, he decides to engage in some wrestling, which seems to have been a pretty big mistake. It changed up the cardio demand, got him a little bit tired. He still fought okay after that, but you could see him start to slow down, and Johnson just pressure, pretty good body work, which doesn't make anything better if you're on the receiving end of it. And then Kavanaugh just feet out of position, hands down, exiting a pocket exchange, and right hand from Johnson, boom on the jaw, all she wrote. Minor note that apparently Charles Johnson was like broke going into this fight. His bank account was like negative. He'd had to borrow money. And he got a win, and he got a performance bonus. Spoiler alert for that. And a lot of people went, how is that possible? His spending must be ridiculous. Don't you understand? This man fought four times in 2024 and now twice in 2025. He's not an inactive fighter. In fact, he's got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's got 12 UFC fights since 2022 when he came into the promotion. So he's averaging 4 fights a year. And how can he possibly be broke? Few things. One, let's acknowledge up front, I don't know the man's spending habits. They might be poor. That's definitely possible. However, you guys really don't understand how this works. First of all, any number you see as someone's salary, so let's just start with this. In a regular salary job, you say, oh, I make $100,000 a year. You don't make $100,000 a year. We all know it. You pay federal taxes, you pay state taxes, you get half of that if you're lucky. Now, that's worse for fighters in a handful of ways. Whatever you make, 10% is kind of the industry standard for your coach. Whatever you make. That might be a little bit different depending on relationships or specific deals, but generally speaking, 10%. Off the top, not the net. If you have an agent, you have to pay them again 10 to 13%. 10 to 15's on the high end for an MMA agent, but not unheard of. So 20 plus percent of whatever your purse is off the top goes away. Then you have taxes. Now, if you've never had to do some of this stuff, some of what I'm about to explain is going to be weird. But if you don't fight in the state that you claim residence, your tax rate is different. I've had to file taxes in different states before because I've done work in different states before. That is a pain in the butt. Some are easier than others. Nevada's great about this. That's why Nevada is such a big fight hub, because they don't actually have that out-of-state income tax thing the same way that others do. There's still state taxes on stuff there, but like it's different. So that's part of the reason, again, part of the reason Vegas became a big, Nevada in general, but Vegas in particular became a big spot for fights, because their tax relationship with non-Nevadans is friendlier. But yeah, man, I had filed. Geez, one year I filed in Michigan, Massachusetts, Virginia, and Missouri. Yeah, that was fun. That was real fun. And of course, all the things I did here in my home state. So yeah, that sucked. So there's that. Then there's the foreign national tax. By the way, somebody posted this after the last. I think it was some American fighter posted about this the last time they fought in Australia. That there's like a 60% tax if you're a foreigner fighting in Australia. Now, it might be a little that might be a little bit on the extreme end, but fundamentally that's not out of line. Pretty much every country does that. If you are a non-citizen of the country, you come in here and you do business and you get paid, the tax is different. It happens for foreigners who fight here in the United States. It happens to you Americans whenever they fight elsewhere. So, and then of course there's the just federal income taxes you have to pay. So just take whatever you think fighters make off of a single fight, do the math on some of this stuff, then just accept that, oh, there's living expenses. Like, even if, again, I will accept that Charles Johnson's personal spending habits might not be ideal, but even if they're very good, you can still run out of money doing this. You've also got to pay your gym. Like, oh no, but the 10% from your fee, that's not the... Again, this will change a little bit depending on who you are and how you relate to your gym, but you want to go to a gym, you pay for it. And it's not just your percentage of your purse. It's also a percentage of your purse, but usually, again, this will change if you're like a big deal fighter at a gym. They might only go on your purse percentage instead of having you pay monthly dues. But a lot of places, and if you're not a big fighter, you're going to be paying them every month to be there. You put a training camp together, that's on you as the fighter. You pay your coaches. That's all, however many of them there are. You pay a nutritionist if you have a nutritionist. You pay your sparring partners. And you know what? If you're a good sparring partner, that actually can be decent money. Not huge, but decent. You pay for all that if you want anything specific. So whatever you think they're making, it's not ultimately going to be as much as you think. So I'm not killing Charles Johnson for it, is kind of the point. The other point is a ranked flyweight contender who is active, by the way. Again, 4 fights a year is active. Is struggling financially to a company who's about ready to start getting $1 billion a year for 7 years. Boy, that's a bad look. Now, again, Johnson's spending habits will absolutely be a component of this, 1,000,000%. But pretending that that's the only possible explanation for why his finances aren't great, no, there's a lot of things contributing to that. So, thought I'd address that real briefly. Lightweight next, Rong Zhu defeated Austin Hubbard via unanimous decision. 130-27 to 29-28. Okay fight. Yeah, Rong Zhu just kind of better than Hubbard. Middleweight Kyle Dawkins defeated Michel Pereira via knockout, 43 seconds of the first round. Yeah, Pereira looks a little washed at this point. Dawkins not a world beater, and Pereira just didn't seem to have it. Got clipped with a right hand coming out of an exchange, dropped, finished on the ground. Good return win for Dawkins. Took this on relatively short notice. But I think Pereira might be done at this. Might be on the wrong end of things. I don't know that he's got another act in him at this point. Yijia defeated Weston Wilson via KO punches, 37 seconds of the first round. Wilson just does not have it striking. Bantamweight Su Young Yu defeated Zhao Long via unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. Good first 2 rounds for Yu. The second one a little bit better for Zhao, but not enough to take it. Zhao gets the third. Some fun pocket boxing. Yu had a decent foot sweep, but his clinch game needs to come up a lot for a guy who uses it as much as he does. He kept getting stuck with head position and then just like 2-on-1, almost arm drags. Not full-on arm drags, but 2-on-1 wrist control from Zhao, and he just couldn't get around it. And kicking everything off, Urwan Satabaldiev defeated Dr. Nergozhai via Ezekiel choke, 2:45 of the first. Satabaldiev was on top in the full guard of Nergozhai and still got him with an Ezekiel. I can't tell you how much that shouldn't happen. Now look, if you're in your first little bit, your first month of going to jiu-jitsu, and there's a guy a lot better than you, and he catches you with this even from full guard, okay. If you're someone good enough to be in the UFC, you getting Ezekiel choked from your own guard? Like, there's so many ways to avoid this. I mean, so many ways. And you just lay there on your back like a turtle and let the other guy Ezekiel choke you. Normally you need mount for that. I'm actually even a little bit more sympathetic to the Ezekiel from bottom if you've got full guard, because that's another way that you could do it. Like, if you're on top in someone's guard and you can Ezekiel choke them, again, that's like the most beginner level grappling there is. And I don't say that to be dismissive of beginner level grapplers. Okay? I say that as a statement of fact. We've all been there. If you train, you will be there. You grow beyond it. That's okay. I'm not shaming anyone, apart from the guy in the UFC who gets hit with one. That should demonstrate a level of understanding and basic competency that goes beyond at least getting Ezekiel choked while you have full guard. Oy vey. That was it. That was the card. No fight of the night. Understandable. Performances went to Johnny Walker, Charles Johnson, Kyle Dawkins, and Urwan Satabaldiev. Satabaldiev. I think it was Satabaldiev was the way they were pronouncing it. You could have gone Yijia instead of Walker. I might have gone him instead of Walker. I mean, you weren't going to do Nergozhai after the fouls, so... Anyway, that's where we are with that. Full report, MMAZona411mania.com. Go give it a read if you're so inclined. I appreciate it. All right, we got some news. Not a lot, but a little bit, so let's burn through this, if you don't mind. Okay, the most depressing news of the week, Frankie Edgar is coming out of retirement and will be fighting at BKFC. This is going to go badly. I don't know what's up with this. BKFC can occasionally throw a little bit of money around. Not a lot, little bit. Sorry, how do I phrase this? They don't have the finances to offer big paydays on a regular basis. They do seem to have enough to throw a decent chunk of money occasionally at a few different people. I hope Frankie Edgar doesn't need the money, but he might. I mean, it's depressing as heck to think of a guy who was a champion, who was in the UFC for as long as he was, had as many main events as he did, to now at age 40 be in a position where I'm taking money from to do bare knuckle boxing. Again, depressing, very depressing. But maybe a little more on that later. The depressing stuff, at least. All right, minor news here. Bryan Battle got cut. He had his second weight miss. Had that fight called off with Nursultan Rozboyev. I understand the UFC doing this. I would have given the guy another shot. And for anyone out there going, but he missed weight 3 times across 2 weight classes. Yes, he did. So did John Lineker. So did Charles Oliveira. Uh, I don't think Kelvin Gastelum ever missed at middleweight, but Gastelum missed weight a lot at welterweight. And we still kept all those guys around. I wouldn't be surprised if Battle makes his way back to the UFC, but uh, the UFC also might be in a position now where they're like, yeah, I don't got time for your nonsense. So I don't know. But something to potentially keep an eye on. And in our super depressing news of the week, and you might have thought, oh, isn't Frankie Edgar coming out of retirement the most depressing thing? No, no, no. The most depressing thing was the announcement in the boxing world that Jake Paul has his next fight lined up. It will be an exhibition against Gervonta Tank Davis. I don't know how to describe how stupid this is. I'm not going to lose my mind over it. It's stupid. But there's a couple of things that need to be acknowledged here. One, Tank is kind of looking to cash himself out of boxing. Has been for a little bit. And this will offer a good payday. Two, Jake Paul is paying well in the boxing world. People are taking him and being associated with him in that respect seriously. Three, the American boxing scene is kind of bad right now. It's not good. American boxing doesn't have a lot of big stars. It doesn't have a lot of pull. It doesn't have a lot of hype. It's kind of bad over here. Everyone kind of let Turkey Al-Sheikh into the you let the fox into the hen house, and we're paying the price for it. So Gervonta Davis and presumably the PBC in general going to Jake Paul because Jake Paul is kind of money. This will be on Netflix. Yeah, that's a bad look for American boxing. This is a big loss for Lamont Roach, who should have beaten Davis, but, weirdness. It's a bad look for boxing overall. And for anyone out there going, but wait, there's a big weight disparity. Yeah, it'll be an exhibition, not a, sanctioned fight. And didn't Logan Paul box Floyd Mayweather? Two things. One, Logan Paul does not have the relationship to boxing that Jake Paul does. Never has. Two, Floyd Mayweather was long retired at that point, not an active boxer, not an active part of the boxing scene, and was not being distracted and was not detracting in any way from the actual business of boxing. This is the first time that Jake Paul has messed with the actual business of boxing either, by the way. all the other guys, all the former MMA fighters that he kind of made his bones against, none of that detracted from the rank and file business of boxing. The closest you could argue he got was when he fought Tommy Fury, which was not actually a detraction from boxing. It was an appropriate fight for both guys, all things considered. The rest of it has just been the sideshow. The problem is now the sideshow is the show in American boxing, and that's a bad thing, everybody. Don't know how many different ways to say that. It's a bad, bad thing. All right. That's all the news I had written down here. And again, there's nothing to preview, really. So I'm going to check the old social medias. No, I'm not going to talk about the Raja Jackson situation until I have a legitimate update. If you want to see the clips, it's easy to find, and you're welcome to formulate your own opinions on that. I'll wait. I might talk about it next week if there's any like legitimate movement on the story and law enforcement and whatnot, because there should be, but my opinion there. All right, I'm going to check the old social medias. Probably nothing there, but let me look, and then if not, we'll do plugs and get out of here, and this will be a really short episode. Okay. No, I don't see anything new there, so let's do some plugs. Last week, what did we do last week? Told you my brain is a little bit fried. Mark Radulich and I did a Damn You Hollywood for Night Always Comes. It stinks. Give that a listen if you're so inclined. I mentioned already I was a little bit busy. SmackDown on Friday, UFC event early Saturday morning, and Sunday afternoon, AEW/New Japan's Forbidden Door. All those can be found in the Wrestling or MMA Zones of 411mania.com if you're interested in any all of that. This week, there is not a traditional Damn You Hollywood. There's nothing coming out. So Mark and I are doing a triple feature focusing on Joel Schumacher. We will be looking at The Boys, Falling Down, and 8mm. 3 wildly different movies. So tune in for that if you're interested. I don't think I have anything else. Nope, SmackDown on Friday. No UFC event on Saturday. Sunday the 31st, I will be covering WWE's Clash in Paris. So tune in for that, and we'll be back here next week to preview UFC on ESPN Plus 116. This is the Paris card for the 6th of September. Headlined by Nasruddin Imavov and Kyle Bahalio. That's a good fight. Benoit Saint-Denis and Mauricio Hufi. Good fight. What else is there? I don't hate Fares Ziam and Kaue Fernandez. Umar Sy is getting kind of a gimme. Patricio Pitbull and Loseni Keita. That's not a bad fight. So there's some stuff there. Not terrible for a generic fight night from Paris that will air probably in the middle of the day. And a very, very good and relevant main event. So I'm not going to complain too loudly. I'll just acknowledge there's a fair amount of chaff/bloat on there. All right. And we'll preview it next week. All right. Might look completely different by then. Who knows? Anything can happen. I'll see y'all next week, so thank y'all very much for tuning in. Until then, stay safe out there and continue to be well, be safe, and behave.